Okay, I have 12 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and get started to the first of a series of TABC Lunch and Learn, a monthly virtual education series that TABC is doing for our licensees and permittees and other stakeholders across the state. I'm very excited to be the first one to be able to present these series. Today we're going to be talking about retailers, off-premise location retailers, and some specific public safety laws relating to those kinds of businesses. A lot of our previous retail training out there was very broad, and it didn't identify a certain segment of our industry members, whereas this one is specifically designed for public safety issues significant to off-premise retail locations such as convenience stores and things of that nature. Just a little bit of information, and hopefully, if you have any questions, you're welcome to chat that information using the chat function on the presentation. Obviously, we were not aware of how many people were going to be joining us today, so we do have everybody muted. So the communication that we're going to use for any questions or comments or anything of that nature that you have for me will be through the chat feature. We have a couple of participants. We may have some folks joining us as we go. That's fine, but we're going to go ahead and move forward because I know your time is valuable. Here we have some disclaimers again. I'm sure that you can read through them and see those, but basically this is just for us to help improve internal and external communications between us and our industry members. And we can give some general situations that we're going to present, but this is only a general guidance and not necessarily means every situation that you're going to encounter. But again, if you have any questions that I don't cover in this presentation, you're more than welcome to contact us. And if you don't mind, if you have your a piece of paper or something available, you can jot down some of the information. First and foremost is if you do experience any technical issues using Zoom, there's the address for the Zoom's Help Center, basically support.zoom.us/HC. And again, just as I discussed, we do interact with the presenter through the chat feature. So our presentation today is off-premise retailers. My name is Victor Kuykendoll. I am the Acting Chief of Law Enforcement for the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission, stationed here at the headquarters in Austin, Texas. In today's discussion, we hope to turn around and present information relevant to your industry regarding underage persons, or otherwise known as minors, some of our minor sting operations, which will make you familiar with those, safe harbor, and that's basically where a retailer can take advantage if they've done a certain number of, instituted a certain number of measures to prevent their employees from making sales to minors or intoxicated persons. The business can claim safe harbor if they've met those measures, and we'll talk more about that. We'll talk about fictitious identifications, and one of the initiatives that TABC has available for us to address those issues through cooperative operations such as cops in shops and fake out. And then we'll also kind of go over some best practices that we recommend for our industry members for off-premise retailers. So first and foremost, underage persons, minors. The most common violation off-premise retailers encounter reference to minors is going to be the sell to minors, where the minor comes into the store, and a minor is defined in Texas as anybody under the age of 21. If they come into the store and one of you or your clerks or employees is to sell to that minor, then not only do they commit administrative violation of sell to a minor, but there's also the criminal violation as well for the individual that actually performed the sale. But as far as the business goes, a sell to minor, the sanctions on that for a first violation generally ranges between 8 to 12 days. The second violation within 36-month time frame is 16 to 24 days. And the third violation can go up as high as 40 days and often can result in cancellation of the permit. Again, just like I stated, state law says that a minor defines a person as a minor as anybody under 21 years of age attempting to buy alcohol. Some people get confused when they deal with the signage, the reminders and stuff on the wall that says, hey, 18 to buy tobacco. Remember, it's 21 to buy alcohol. There are provisions that protect the individual if the person presents what appear to be a valid identification for the purpose of trying to buy alcohol. So that person, if they sell to one, depending if the minor was to present a driver's license that had the information consistent with his or her appearance on the driver's license or identification, and the clerk depended on that information to be true and correct, then the state says they do not commit an offense if that driver's license or identification purports them to be at least 21 years of age or older, that the identification is issued by a government agency, and the physical description is consistent with his or her appearance. Again, it takes, what we see too often in our minor sting operations is that the employee will go through very quickly and take a look at the identification and not really examine the identification. I mean, obviously, we need to make sure that not only does a picture match, but the information is also consistent. If you're looking at somebody that's 6'2" and the identification says they're 5'7", or vice versa, you may have an issue there about that's not their ID. And we'll talk about fake IDs as well. Identifications that you can take advantage of for, not sure should I take advantage of, but the ones that are acceptable as far as accepting or any government agency ID, and that includes any state driver's license or identification, just like the one I'm holding here, a U.S. passport, a military identification card, or any other ID issued by a state or federal government, U.S., state, or federal government. Again, just like I stated before, not only is the business held liable if the employee makes the sale, but the employee themselves are also liable criminally if they sell to a minor. Now, I wanted to kind of cover some basic common offenses relating to the minor themselves if they come in and try to buy alcohol from you, just so you know, they too, if it's not one of our minors that we're using during a compliance check, a minor sting, if it's actual a minor that comes in and tries to buy alcohol, they commit certain violations as well. So the minor goes to the cooler, takes possession of the alcohol and brings it to the counter to purchase the alcohol. If they successfully purchase it, the violation there would be purchase of an alcohol by a minor. But just the mere attempt, the fact that they even go through the motion in order to try to buy that alcohol is also a violation of the Alcohol Beverage Code and defined as attempted purchase alcohol by a minor. There are those who minors seek out to help gain that alcohol for them using somebody who is of age, and they'll give their money over to their friend or somebody they know or somebody else, and that person will come into your place of business and try to purchase that alcohol for that minor, and that's a Class A misdemeanor. The other two are Class C's, which means they basically are citations. But if you purchase or furnish an alcohol to a minor, that's Class A. So kind of give you an idea, a basic driving while intoxicated offense in the state of Texas is a Class B. The next level up is a Class A. And then after that, we start getting to our felonies. So the other one common violation that we see a lot of times relating to minors attempting to buy alcohol at our off-premise retailers is misrepresentation of age. So as we conduct our minor stings, and we'll talk about those in just a sec, we sometimes see that there's an indication that, well, maybe they're not selling to the minors that we're using for our compliance check during the stings, but they may sell to somebody that they know is a neighborhood kid or something like that that comes through there, and we decide to check that location using exterior surveillance or other methods. And so in doing so, when the kid walks through there and tries to buy the alcohol, even if they don't get sold that alcohol, we may still address the issue because, again, the child, the minor, did actually commit violations themselves. So let's talk about our minor sting operations. TABC conducts minor stingers operations throughout the entire part of the state. These are covert compliance checks in retail locations using volunteer minors. So these are not people that we turn around and have on staff with our agency. They're going to be dressed in a dress that's appropriate for their age. Our minors are not over 18 years of age. They generally range in the ages from 16 to 18. You know, when they are sent into locations to do compliance checks or through our minor stings, they're going to be using their valid driver's license or identification cards that they're issued. They're not given any fictitious IDs by the state or asked to be untruthful in any way, shape, or form. You know, if you ask them how old they are, they're going to respond with their appropriate age. And often our minor stings are video recorded as well, so for evidentiary purposes and to monitor our operations effectiveness on the back end. And we choose our locations at random from either locations that haven't been checked in a period of time through a minor sting or other type of operation. But more common, they're going to be locations we identified as priority locations. And these are locations that have either complaints or prior history for sale to minor allegations. Now, you're not going to go from one side of the state to the other and find that these operations are conducted in any different manner. They're all conducted in the same manner through policy and procedures through our agency. And often our minors are children or civic group volunteers, you know, children of our employees or civic group volunteers or recruits from local schools or like say their local high school has a law enforcement program for youth to turn around and get them interested into the law enforcement career. They sometimes will ask to become volunteers in our minor stings, and we'll let they use them. But when we turn around and use somebody on our stings, we seek out the permission of their parents, obviously, and we screen our minors before we use them. Make sure the parents are okay with how we conduct our operations. We tell them exactly from how we operate, what we're going to be asking, the expectation of our minors as far as walking into stores and the security measures that we take to make sure our minors are protected. Our minors are always in the presence of certified police officers at all times through our operations. And again, they're going to be dressed, excuse me for that. They're going to be dressed in clothing appropriate to their age. We're not dressing them up to make them look older or having somebody with beards and mustaches. They're going to look youthful. They're going to be dressed youthful. This is not a gotcha function. All it is a compliance check, and our ultimate goal here is to hopefully receive that compliance and the clerk or employee acknowledges that they're underage and prevents the sale to that minor. Now, of course, you want to use minors in locations where they live. So they're not going to be known to the people at those businesses. Oftentimes we're going to take them somewhere else that they're not going to be likely to visit when they're not working for us or assisting us in those things. So say if one of your employees for your business does sell to a minor, and you want to take advantage of safe harbor. Safe harbor basically means that if you institute certain things that you can't, what it allows you to do is if all your employees are seller server trained, that you've instituted a policy, that you've made your employees aware of that policy, and you have that policy available to them at given times where they can access it on a regular basis, then you as the employer can say, I've done everything I could do to prevent that sale to that minor. I've made sure that all my employees, regardless of their hire date or within 30 days of their hire date, are sales server trained. The employee that actually committed the violation is sales server trained. So we allow for a 30-day grace period for on-the-job training, but we recommend that if you're going to do that, have them partner up with somebody that is sales server trained currently, because if that person was to actually conduct a sale, we would not restrain or allow for safe harbor in those circumstances. Again, this not only covers sales to minor, but also intoxicated persons. And as it doesn't relate to off-premise retail locations, there is the section that talks about non-members of private clubs. But if you do those things, your business will qualify for safe harbor. Now, as far as seller training and employee certification, our website provides a list of approved courses throughout the state, and those which are available to you and your employees are online. You can check also through our website your employee status using the employee social security number and date of birth. If you need information more about where that's located, you're welcome to send me your information, and I'll respond back to you and let you know where you can find it on our website. Now, what this does is shifts all of the responsibility and liability for that sale, if one of your employees makes a sale to a minor, from the business onto the employee themselves. So they can still be charged criminally even though you have all these measures in place. Basically what it says is that don't blame me for what my employee did. I've done everything I could do to prevent them from making those mistakes or commit this violation. And we would agree with you as long as it is only 2 times within a 12-month period. If we find violations 3 or more times within 12 months, we no longer restrain those cases and you don't qualify for safe harbor. So again, for enhancement purposes, we look at a 36-month window for violations. So if you have the first violation within 36 months, it's treated as first violation. The second one in 36 months, and again, the third one, we've talked about the penalties for those. If one of those, say this is your 3rd case against your business, but one of them was over 3 years ago, we're going to treat that 3rd one as if it was your 2nd. And you only get 2 safe harbors within a 12-month window. Anything after that would be a regular case and not qualify for safe harbor. So let's talk about fictitious IDs. I have my driver's license already out because I wanted to kind of go over certain things that's available, that's commonly seen on the driver's license. But one of the things that we're really encountering in Texas and anywhere in the U.S. nowadays is the quality of the fakes of our IDs have really significantly improved over the years. Back in the day, they were very easy to spot for any peace officer and anybody working in the industry. But nowadays, if you look at your driver's license, I encourage you to take it out and kind of look at it a little bit with me. And I'll point out some basic security features. I don't want to get into some really detailed security things that law enforcement look at. But as you can even see on the picture on the PowerPoint there, you can see the raised tactile on the front of it underneath the picture where it shows the date of birth. It's going to have some holograms on the driver's license. It's going to, if you look at it, hold up to a light, you can see that there's a cutout of the state of Texas. And again, these are Texas driver's licenses I'm talking about. Each state has their own. And of course, passports, they have other measures in place. But the main thing that is important to note is that if you do your due diligence and just look at it, and if it looks like it's real and it feels like it's real and it purports the same information as far as physical description of the person that's trying to buy it, we're going to turn around and say that you've done your due diligence and not hold you or the business accountable for that sale. Now, the purpose of the fake IDs in the industry is often referenced as far as minors trying to buy alcohol. However, there are other reasons why people out there in the world get fake IDs, and that's to try to hide their true identity and commit identity theft. So those are more sinister reasons for having a fake ID. So we've had to, because of the quality of the fake IDs out there in the industry and in the market today, we've had to get a little bit more creative about the technology we use and the efforts we use in discerning which ones are real and which ones are fake. So there, if you look out there on Google it, you can see that there's now some apps that we use. In fact, we're testing one right now that allows you to use this app, and it looks at the driver's license or identification and compares it to known databases, and it can tell whether or not, compared to the information on that database or what's the information that's embedded on this ID, whether or not it's real or if it appears to be fictitious. Because again, just by looking at them nowadays, it's very hard to tell the difference. And I encourage you, if you're a business owner, to look at doing, to researching thif you're interested. I can turn around and kind of give you a direction where you can find that information. I don't want to endorse any one company over another. But again, just like our agents right now are currently testing different apps in the field as far as the ability to detect these IDs, because some of the ones that are coming in from China and from India and stuff like that you can get online are just really good quality. And when we find those, we're referring those back over to the Secret Service and HSI, Homeland Security, in order to follow up the trails and where these are coming from, so they can kind of quash the source of where these fake IDs are evolving from. Now, as I point out, these fake IDs pose a big challenge for our industry members. They're just so good nowadays. They're hard for our clerks to detect. So one of the other factors is that, because minors tend to seek out these IDs, they're unwittingly giving some of their information over to criminals. I mean, let's face it, it's criminals that produce these identifications. So, you're giving your information to, because they're going to try to use their same name and usually the month and the day of their birthday, but not necessarily the year. Obviously, they're going to try to make themselves look older. They'll turn around and use their actual addresses, so they can have something, if they get questioned, they can remember off the top of their head. So, people that are making these can gain that information from them and use them to steal those minors' identifications. Now, as the minors use, or anybody has these fake IDs, there's a couple of offenses that are associated with fake IDs or fictitious identifications. One is a misrepresentation of age by a minor, and that's actually found in our alcohol beverage code. And that could be performed whether or not they hold their ID or present their identification. They could turn around and actually just say, hey, I'm 22 years old. That constitutes misrepresentation of age, and that's a Class C misdemeanor. The other one is a possession of fictitious ID by a minor, and that's specific to minors only, and it has to be for the purpose of trying to buy alcohol. So therefore, it's a Class C misdemeanor. Because if it wasn't for the purpose of buying alcohol, then the actual charge would be possession of fictitious ID in general, and that's a Class A misdemeanor. So say I turn around and take my real ID or somebody else's, and I tamper with it and try to use that or have that in my possession. Now I've just went from a misdemeanor violations to the felony range, and tampering with a government record would be a third-degree felony. So we do take these offenses very serious. And when you are experiencing problems relating to fictitious IDs at your locations, or minors trying to come into your business, trying to buy alcohol beverages, what we ask you to do is reach out to your local TABC office, and what we can help you with is performing a cooperative operation. So we'll visit with your manager, owners, and talk to them about actually performing what we call a cops and shops, or an operation fake out. And this is where TABC agents work covertly alongside the employees inside the retail locations, and they pose as either customers or employees in hopes of detecting minors trying to come in with the intent or attempting to purchase alcohol beverages using these fake IDs. we also use these operations to gain information for intelligence that we can relate back to these entities, social, Secret Service and Homeland Security, of where they're getting those identifications from, and try to stop the manufacture and distribution of these fictitious IDs throughout our state. So let's talk about best practices. We encourage retail businesses, off-premise retail business, to have policies for checking IDs. This could also serve as the same policy for qualifying for safe harbor. A lot of businesses would say if you're under the age of, if you see somebody come inside the store that looks to be under the age of 30 or 35, it's our policy to ID. It could be your business's policy regardless of how old they look to ID. We're not going to tell you what that policy has to be at that point, but we do encourage you to have something in there about somebody looking under a certain age as far as requesting identifications. We do have a suggested policy on our website that I can direct you to if you have any questions or what your policy should look like. But to help your employees out, we also encourage you to have a point-of-sale system that prompts for a date of birth, or a scanning system where you can scan these IDs. Some of these point-of-sale systems are able to not capture the information on the driver's license or identification cards, but at least make sure that the scan bar on the back of these driver's license indicates that they are of age. It matches what's on the front when they scan this identifications, these state IDs and driver's licenses. Again, now the fakes are so quality that if that's all it does is compare what's embedded on the scan on the back of the card to what's on the front, our manufacturer of these fictitious IDs have managed to perfect that ability to do that, to scan that embed that information in the scan bars. So, now they have some systems out there that, again, can compare it to off databases that make sure that not only is it matches on the scan to the front of the information, but it also matches the database that they're comparing it to make sure they're valid. But if at least your point of sale system prompts for a date of birth, that helps your employees to remember to check for their IDs and verify their age. It's also very important to provide education to your staff. TABC has a list of schools, like I mentioned before, of seller server training schools throughout the state that are certified by TABC to provide that training to you and your employees. But we also have training that we provide at free if you contact our local office. That's specifically available to our retail members, that sometimes we can have them come to our locations, and sometimes, depending on the circumstances, we can go to your location and provide that training. They are provided by some of our staff that are in both the auditing and enforcement division, and it allows your ability to ask your employees to ask questions and gain information as we present that information. Another important aspect is to make sure your establishment is properly staffed. Complacency is one of the biggest killers as far as preventing sales to minors, is that people get in a rush because they have a lot of folks coming through the lines or staying in line, and they feel pressure to quickly make the sale and move on to the next one so they can provide good customer service. And they don't slow down long enough to take the time it takes to really examine these driver's licenses and IDs for the folks that are looking youthful when they come up to the counter to try to buy alcohol and tobacco products. And if you sell kegs, we encourage you to keep a keg sales record. If you do that, we ask that you record the ID information that you used during the sales, so who you actually picked it up or who you sold it to, and record the date and time and product description. A lot of times we find kegs that were being provided to minors at these parties and things of that nature, and we find that the keg comes from a particular location. It's helpful for us if we can come to you and say, hey, look, we got this. We heard it was purchased here, and we can look at those records and verify who actually bought that alcohol for those minors. And it prevents your business from being accused of selling to those minors. So we definitely encourage you to go through all, to have a keg sales record if you provide keg sales. So in closing, I want to kind of just go over everything again. We understand, we want you to understand that selling alcohol is not a right in Texas, it's a privilege. And with that privilege comes a lot of reliability relating to the sales of alcohol beverages to minors. Know that we're going to be out there, not only our agency, but there are other agencies that do compliance checks or minor stings, checking for the sales to minors at our licensed retail locations. Again, know that our minors are going to be 16, 18 generally in age, and they're going to be dressed typical to their age group, and they're going to be truthful and have their true identification. We encourage other agencies to follow that same procedure or policies, but there are other agencies that would do compliance checks as well that may use somebody 19 years old or definitely somebody younger. I remember that when both my daughters worked in as a minor for our minor sting operations, and my youngest one, when she was 15 and got her learner's permit, which is a valid driver's license, she was very young, probably 5'1", and probably weighed about 110 pounds. There's no way to me, I mean, she looked like she was 12, 13 years old in my eyes. But the first time we used her, I just thought, there's no way in the world anybody's going to sell to this girl. She looks way too young. And then she gets out there, and we checked 20 locations, and 5 of those locations sell to her. I was just flabbergasted. Now, of course, that was an anomaly, but, as a parent, I was very concerned about that. And as a law enforcement officer, I definitely was concerned about the industry and their seriousness of making sure that they're preventing those sales to minors. So, but a lot of the ones that we encountered, it was just complacency and just going through the motions. Just because our minor handed them an ID, they think, oh, well, they gave me an ID, so they must be of age. They never actually examined it. So, in fact, the minors that we use, they use a real ID, which will be vertical versus horizontal. They'll have under 21 until the age, to the date of, written in red right across the top of it. So all it takes is just slow down on the sales and be a little bit more careful to prevent those violations from occurring. We also want to remind you that we partner with our industry members to ensure responsible service through cooperative operations. And what we're talking about there again is the cops and shops, where we can turn around and work next to your employees or serve, look like we're in there as customers, and watch for these minors that are coming in there, testing your businesses themselves to see if they'll sell alcohol to them and their friends. I remember one location we checked, we were conducting a surveillance on it. It wasn't a cooperative operation, but we see a group of it was a drive-through window, and a carload of minors drives up to the window, and the person sells to these minors. So we intercede, and we make contact and ID, and everybody, of course, is under the age of 21. But this is the point I'm getting at, is it became such a known location that while we were standing in this, we were standing next to this window that was just around the corner of where this lane is for the drive-through. Behind the other side of that building, there were several cars lined up with all of them with minors in it. It had gotten out that this was a location you can buy alcohol from, and they were coming in droves trying to buy the alcohol from this particular location. And I can tell you that when we did our last cooperative operation, social media is getting out there. They will share that information in a heartbeat if they know that your location sells to just one of them. You're going to get inundated with minors trying to buy alcohol. So we encourage you as an industry member to be compliant and provide your employees with the necessary education and resources so they can make responsible decisions and prevent those sales to those minors. So again, that's pretty much basically the presentation I had for this particular Lunch and Learn. I hope that you found some of the information useful. Again, there is a chat feature. If you want to, you can ask me any questions at this point in time. If I hadn't covered any of the questions that you may have thought of during this presentation, you're welcome to send it to me now. I'm going to check it real quick just to make sure I hadn't missed anything. Also in there is my email address. So you have that. If you have any questions after this presentation is done, you're welcome to email me at victor.kirkendall@tabc.texas.gov, or you're welcome to call me at 512-206-3271, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you have as well.